My PowerPoint presentation is on mindfulness education, and my observers are students, which I think is perfect because we are talking about how mindfulness education affects teenagers. And it's amazing to me that in the course of time that I've been doing this, and I thought that it was my idea because I went to yoga and it inspired me to do the same kinds of techniques with my students that I was having that were making me feel so much better in my daily life and so much less stressed. So I started incorporating it with my students, and we've been doing that in class now for about 3 years. And the process is that we turn the lights down at the end of class after exercising, and we put on some kind of spa music, and I usually take them through some sort of a guided meditation, which these girls know here and these boys don't know, so they're hearing for the first time. What I do is I'll say something like, if you would like to focus on a goal for yourself or establish some sort of end for this week that you would like to see happen, and imagine that already happening. And then we take a few moments to let that sink in. We focus on our breathing. And I was really surprised to find when I started researching this that it's been done for about 3 to 5 years, widespread across the United States, especially in California. I found many examples. And it is having significant impacts. The research is showing that kids are feeling less stressed, and kids are able to, in some schools where there's violence, they're able to not have as much violence. So I'm just going to take you through the process of the research that I did on this, and we're going to see how that path went and what I came up with. Okay? So I just talked a little bit about the development of the question. At the beginning of this process, my question was, how can I help students use relaxation techniques more effectively? Because of course you have a few who don't actually get all the way into relaxation. And they tend to maybe tap something or reach for their phone or talk to each other or try to be really close to their friends. And that's understandable, that's very normal for high school. But what I wanted to do was, for the majority of students who seem to be completely relaxing and feeling a sense of peace and telling me later that it was helpful to them, I wanted that for 100% of the people. So I was thinking, I want to know what else I can do. What am I doing wrong? What could I do differently? But as I was researching, I was realizing what I really need to find out is this even helpful? Is this something that they would actually benefit from if I get better at it and 100% of them do it? Is it going to make a difference, or is it going to impact them at all? So I started researching whether or not it makes a difference, and there was a lot more information on that. And so my final question was, do relaxation techniques help students in meaningful ways? And if so, how can I help more students to access those benefits? So we started looking at ways in which relaxation techniques, meditation, mindfulness education, it's called all three things. How do those things impact your age group? So next slide. Looking at this in terms of why it's important to me and how it affects my philosophies of teaching. There's so much that we do in the classroom that doesn't have anything to do with our subject matter. And this mindfulness education is not just happening in PE classes or dance classes, it's also happening in science and English and math, and in the classrooms of the teachers who feel comfortable doing this, because every classroom has a component where the teacher wants to educate a student beyond what they're learning in the class. They have to have their minds prepared for what they're learning. If they're learning dance, even though it's an elective, and a lot of kids really like it, but it does require them to express themselves. It's a risk. They have to wear different clothes than they wear in school, and their lines of their body are showing, and they have to really put themselves out there. So in order to get them to do that, what can I do, I had to ask as a teacher, to make them feel more confident, to make them feel less stressed about all the other stuff that's going on, because as a teenager, you have new social relationships that are important to you. You have a lot of academic stress. You have things that are changing chemically in your bodies that you can't even understand. And you have sports. How many of you in here have an activity other than what you do while you're at school? Everyone. Okay. And is it sports, drama, activities? Performing arts people are right here in front of me, so you guys definitely have extra hours. Were you involved in any plays this year or any drama activities? What about one acts or anything like that? So you didn't have to do that after school this year, but you are involved in other activities. And so sometimes, I'm sure you can all understand, you guys have a show coming up this week, as do I, and you still have to do all of your homework. It's not like your teachers say, okay, you have many things going on this week, so let me just subtract myself from the equation and you can just do everything else. And that doesn't happen in our lives ever. So we need a technique that we can use to help us cope with the things that we're supposed to do and that we want to do to be successful. Okay, next. I found so much support that I had to narrow it to categories of support. And what I found was, from Wallace, they reported that mindfulness education in schools has been just completely exploding all over the place, and has been, in cases where they've actually done research on it, has been found to be beneficial in almost every way. But some of the more important ways are slowing in rapid heart rate associated with stress, which is such a common problem with students, an increase in academic focus. So you might go from meditating in one class and then you have a math test later and you suddenly find that you're thinking more clearly because you've cleared out some of the chaos going on in your brain that's been stressing you out. A greater ability to deal calmly with difficult relationships. And I'd say that's probably number one with a lot of my kids. They'll come into my class feeling pretty okay, and somebody will hear from somebody that somebody doesn't like them or thinks that they did this or that, and life is bad all of a sudden. It's just everybody's sad, and there's tears, and those kinds of things that cause you to go up and down as a teenager, they do get better. But for now, we need to have ways of coping with that. And we teachers know that you need that, so this is a way we can provide it. Black and Fernando studied a California public elementary school. They didn't say what the name of the school was, but it did have a very high percentage of violent behavior. It had a high percentage of socioeconomic disadvantaged students, and it had a high percentage of students from different countries who may or may not have had access to the language in the same way that everyone else, and just a high stress situation. Teachers were coming and going from that school. They couldn't keep them there. So this was a technique that was used, not for that reason, it just happened to be something also going on, and it started spreading, and what they found was that this 5-week mindfulness education that they did with the students, just for 5 weeks, changed all 4 areas of study, which were paying attention, self-control, participation in activities, and caring and respect for others. So the caring and respect for others is perhaps the most interesting to me, because I was thinking, how does relaxing for a little while cause you to have more caring and respect for others? Do you have any ideas about that? Because I have some ideas, but I'm just wondering if you have any ideas about why would meditating or clearing your mind out help you treat people better? Any kind of ideas? All right, this is my idea. I think that when your mind is full of chaos and problems and you're stressed, and then somebody comes up to you and says something that's irritating, or it could be perceived as irritating, you suddenly go off the handle. Whereas if you've got a reserve because you feel good and your heart isn't racing and you're calm, then those things are approached differently. You just don't feel so stressed. If somebody says something to you, it doesn't really make you feel like you have to have a negative reaction. And that's what they found at the school. Another report was done with Coronado Elementary School in Richmond, California, and another low-income area with a high rate of violence. And a teacher there, because he was going to yoga in order to cope with his own students, decided to do some of his yoga techniques with students, and he created the website, the Mindful Life Project, which started to get used by other teachers in Richmond. And the movement spread, causing improvement in student-reported happiness. So they asked the students, since this time, and you've been doing this on a regular basis, what have you noticed? And the students reported that they were happier, which is so important. They were just happier. And they had higher levels of optimism, meaning they felt like they could be successful, they thought they were able to go to college, optimism about their future, optimism about what they were capable of doing, and there was a marked reduction of violence in the school. And that's like a statistic that you can measure. They were not having as many incidents of violence as a result of this. So, support from research specifically related to teen students. There is so much that talks about you as having specific benefits for this, because you are more capable than you've ever been of controlling what goes on in your mind, but you may not realize it. And you're interested at this age in controlling what goes on in your mind more than other age groups have been before you. So if we present you with information that could get you in control of some of the things that you're out of control with, then you're more likely to take something and go with it. So that's why they're finding it more successful for teenagers. In a beach study, they found emotionally teenagers felt more in control of their thoughts and the feelings that were associated with those thoughts. And Smith found that meditation for teens helped with a lot of emotional and physical problems, including brain, heart, immune system, and sleep issues. So sleep can be a problem with kids when they're stressed, when they're worried about something, or just because of the fact that they have to get their homework done before they go to sleep, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes that stress lends itself to take a long time doing your homework because you're so stressed about it that you can't concentrate on it, and it becomes a cycle that you don't get out of without some sort of help or intervention. Okay. Though much research has been done on this topic, it's almost all new. And so we're finding a lot of good things, but I'm feeling like in terms of what this study could do for the contribution towards this particular topic, I think that just this study could potentially help other teachers in our area. I could share with them the results that I found online and with my own students and possibly make an impact in this area. And I think we could work together this year and next year and find some more research and look into how it affects home life and how it affects lots of different categories. Just really do some research and see how our school can benefit from using that. I collected data in the form of student surveys. I had my students answer some questions about what was working for them and what wasn't, what they would like to have differently done from me. And I collected, I wrote in a journal myself so that as I was watching this, I was taking notes on what was happening, what was creating problems. I noticed some students were constantly fidgeting and trying to not get into it because they didn't want to give up, I'm assuming, they didn't want to give up their own control over what they were doing with their time, and they didn't want to try to get into the state of relaxation, partly probably because they hadn't done it before and didn't know how great it could be. So my goal was to figure out what I could do for that. Another way that I collected data was I contacted a small group of parents. We only had a short window of time, and so I contacted 10 parents, and I only have been able to have a conversation with 8 of them regarding this because, again, they couldn't get back to me or I couldn't get back to them. Schedules are crazy. A couple of them reported that their student does this at home and has talked to them about it. All of them reported that they knew I was doing it, except with the exception of 1. But again, it's such a small scope that it really doesn't mean a lot right now. It's just a starting point for what I might be able to do with it next year. Okay, I think that was all of my data collection strategies. And in analyzing it, I used grounded theory in the way that I moved through all of what we would do in terms of finding a population of students who I could use to develop my hypothesis, asking the question, moving through to answer the question, collecting qualitative data, finding conclusions and larger ideas from that data, all using the grounded theory. Also in the theory are narrative analysis and discourse analysis. Narrative analysis when looking at reflecting students' responses and my own journal writing, and discourse analysis when discussing the topic of relaxation with students and parents. And I think a lot more, the discussion was fruitful, and I feel like that would be a big, really helpful way. It's just really difficult to measure the comments verbally made, and so I need to spend more time on that for next time. The student surveys showed that about 80% of students reported benefits from the relaxation. There were only a few that reported that they didn't really like it, and most of the ones that didn't report benefits just said that they liked doing it in class, but they didn't notice other areas that it was benefiting them. Post-surveys, what my students asked me in the pilot group was they asked me to change the music, surprisingly. I thought they loved the music, so that's why we need to ask them what they think. But they didn't like the fact that it had sounds, like ocean sounds and animal sounds and things like that. They just wanted it to be music. And when it came down to it, when I asked them more and more questions, they wanted Disney music from Finding Nemo specifically to start with. That was the music when they're swimming, and it doesn't have any ocean sounds or anything. It's just music. It's just beautiful music with no words. So we used that, and 100% of the kids said it didn't hinder them or they liked it better. So that's what we're going to be doing from now on. Journaling revealed that students who were not engaging or recording benefits were often tapping their feet or twitching, and I felt like they were resisting the process. So the trick would be to get them to see that it could benefit them and to let them have the control to get into it. Parent interviews, again, gave me minimal information because I didn't have very many of those, but I think that could be very useful information if I had a widespread panel of parents willing to openly talk to me about any changes that they saw. And perhaps I would even prepare them ahead of time and say, this is what we're going to do. Can you please look for changes and write down anything that you notice, and I'll be contacting you. Triangulation of the fact that mindfulness education is valuable could be seen in Wallace Beach Smith, all of the researchers that I talked about who found the tons of information on why this is beneficial, students telling me that they found it beneficial, and my observations of students seeing that they've asked me, they want to do it, they get into it. I can see them enjoying the relaxation and wanting to do it more. So that's my own observation. So 3 of those. Triangulation, on the next one, that a change in music selection improves student involvement. Students expressed verbally that they preferred the new music. There were not any students who said that they preferred the other music over it. Students wrote in their post-surveys that they were satisfied with the music or very satisfied with the music, and none of them said that they were dissatisfied with it. My own journaling revealed that about half of the students who I had noticed previously tapping or preventing themselves from getting completely relaxed, actually about half of them stopped doing those behaviors during the listening of the new music. And I don't know if that's because they got to choose the music and so they were satisfied with that, so that gave them a reason to buy in, or if it was because the music actually helped them do that. But either way, the music was helpful. And that is it. The rest is just references. So if you guys have any questions, you can let me know.